Hi there. Oh, let me fix this a little bit. There we are. All right. Well, I'm excited that everyone has decided to join me today. This is very exciting. It's my first online coaching session for you guys. I think what we'll do is, and I do see a lot of friends there, so thank you for tuning in. I think what we'll do is we will do it by the message center. So good morning or good afternoon to some of you, to everyone. And I will take questions through the message center. Good morning from Sylacauga, Alabama. That's exciting. I do like Alabama. I shot a movie in Alabama not too long ago. I thought that I'd start with just sort of a rundown of what I'm hoping to accomplish with this. I know that there are a lot of parents out there that are just sideswiped by what COVID has brought down upon us, closing of schools, but even worse maybe is all of the restrictions on the students who are now going to school with masks on full time, with plexiglass up, the strain on interpersonal relationships that's caused. And homeschooling has always been an option, but for the past decades, it's been sort of it's been on the back burner. It's like, well, that's only in extreme cases. In fact, homeschooling, after we left the homeschool model, which of course was at the founding of the nation, we left that model when we started to implement the one-room schoolhouse and then eventually public schools. And when we went to public schools, it was just so convenient for parents. And, especially when we then went to two-parent working families, right? They needed to get their kids into some kind of caretaking facility every day. And what better way to do that than to call it education and have them, sent off for educational purposes. And so over the decades, we grew so accustomed to putting our children in school that it became really the departure from the norm to keep kids home with us. But my position is that should be the norm. The norm should be that children stay with their parents and that the parents are fully engaged in the education of the child. And so the idea behind this is we're taking a second look at that now because of everything that COVID's brought about. And I'm excited for that because there is such fantastic potential for the development of the relationship of the child to the parent to the child, their personal development by struggling through those relationships and working on them. And when I first started writing for Breitbart, I wrote a piece about troubled teens born in the classroom, in the sense that the school comes in and tells the child, we are the authority. The parent drops the child off at the school and says they are the authority. So the parent undermines his own authority in the home by telling the child the school is the authority. And then the first time that the school says to the child, this is the way it should be done, these are the beliefs that you should have, these are the values that you should have. The first time that the school challenges the parent's authority, the parent has already ceded the ground. So then when the child starts challenging the parent's authority, they can't win. The parent can't win, which strains the relationship between the child and the parent. And here we have this opportunity to rebuild that. And for some of you have very young kids, some of you have been doing this for a while. So, this is maybe review or whatever, but, and I am, by the way, I am recording this session. And I'm double checking that to make sure. Yes, we're recording this session. So the idea behind this is to help parents navigate really what have become uncharted waters, right? Because you and I we all grew up going to public school. That was just the way it was done. There was never any sort of problem with that. That's just the way it was done. Uh, it's not the way it's done anymore. And in fact, I will challenge you to consider that the education paradigm that we have in the United States is outdated at this point. That this idea that you go to college and you get a college degree is somewhat outdated. Look at the big, look at Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson. I think Elon Musk. No, Elon graduated. He did graduate college, but none of those other guys finished school. Okay, so think about what the school does to the child, and think about what the parents could do for the child, especially parents who are entrepreneurs. So I will be taking your questions. I'm trying to follow along as I go here, because this is really about how I can best serve you as the parent who's trying to navigate these waters. And I've gotten so many questions. So I'm going to start with one that I printed it out here. This is someone who's been listening to my videos. And of course, you hopefully all know that I've been doing videos called The Accidental Homeschooler for quite a while, since COVID, basically. And just talking about different issues that I was coming up with that might be challenges or, ideas to get you more comfortable with the idea of home education, which is also a goal of mine, right? I want you to, oh, I love this. How do I help a child who is better than I am at art? I'm laughing because that's totally my story. So to share a little bit, maybe this sort of story might help you. My daughter is an artist and I am not. Just full stop. Okay. So about 3 years ago, and she's been an artist since 7, 8, 9. She started doing art. She loves to sit alone and work. She's a workhorse. She works very hard at it. And she has the patience of Job, and she just sits and does it all. And so about 3 years ago, I hit my knees because I was like, how can I homeschool that? How am I going to do that? It's so not my forte. I'm a math person. She's an art person. And what I finally realized is it's not my job to teach her everything that she will know in life. Okay. As the parent, and if you're taking notes, I encourage you, first of all, to take notes, but I encourage you to write this down. Write not my job, and then write teach everything. It's not your job to teach everything. Your job as the parent educator for your child is to teach your child how learning happens. Now, what's interesting about that is that that's not actually what happens in school. What happens in school, and this may challenge you a little bit, is you learn that the teacher knows everything and that all you have to do is listen to the teacher. And what that does is it actually handicaps the child. It actually cripples the learner, because then the learner grows up thinking, well, I just need to find the expert to tell me how to do whatever it is I need to do. I just need to find the expert to tell me what to do now. Instead of having the attitude of, oh, I have to learn that thing. Okay, I'll go to the internet first and look up YouTube videos, and then I'll try it once, or I'll try it twice, or then I'll consult with somebody, right? It's a completely different mindset. And I would encourage you that you want your children to have the mindset of, well, I can learn anything that I just set my mind to because I know the paradigm of how learning happens. And so I'm going to take that paradigm and apply it in any situation of learning that comes up. You want your child to have that attitude because, let's face it, the world is changing at an unprecedented rate. Everything's changing so quickly now, especially now. I was saying this 2 years ago, but now more than ever, everything's changing. Your child likely will have 5 careers by the time they're 30. and you want them to have the facility to tack with the shifting winds and say, well, I've never done that job before, but if I get offered that job, I know how to learn how to do that job. And in fact, we're seeing now some employers are actually looking for students who didn't go to college, because the college sort of puts a lid on learning and it trains them, and they don't know how to untrain that. And so they'd rather have somebody who's not trained and just start from ground level and train them up to where they want them to be than take somebody out of college who's been fully sort of schooled. So this is what I'm calling it. I'm saying, we haven't been educated. We've been schooled. I don't know about you, but my education really started when I left school. I had learned basics. I'd learned the math and the reading and the writing, although I actually didn't learn the writing. I learned a little bit of history, but it wasn't until I got to college and had a really good seminar history course that encouraged me to go do the research and really take it in, that I started to love history. Okay, so we talked about, so how do I help a child who is better than me at art? I am not the child's ultimate teacher. Do you know who's the teacher for the child? The child. You need to show the child's inner teacher how to teach the child. And so I honestly, I threw my hands up with my own daughter, because she was already light years ahead of me in art. What could I possibly teach her? Nothing, really nothing in art. But what I could do was encourage her and incentivize her to explore further. And then I reached out to some art people who I know, and I said, what do you suggest? And one of them actually said, well, she ought to be studying the physical body. She ought to be studying human anatomy. Okay. So I went, this is going to sound terrible. I went to my daughter and I said, hey, so, I was talking with so-and-so, and they said, you really should study human anatomy. And so I thought maybe we could get you an anatomy course or, something like that. And she takes out her sketchbook and she shows me 2 pages of noses. And then she shows me the inner workings of the knee on 2 pages. She's been doing anatomy herself. She just goes to YouTube, looks up the videos, and starts drawing it. So good job, Mom. I had taught her how to teach herself. She was way ahead of me already. And she just figured out, well, if I want to draw the human body, I better understand how it works. And so I'm going to go online and figure out how to learn how to draw the human body. And that's what she was doing. It's the same thing with math. I know that I have friends who have children who are light years ahead of them in math. What are they going to possibly teach the child? Nothing, or very little. I mean, certainly 1 + 1 is 2 and the beginning stages, right? But at a certain point, you realize that your child has excelled beyond you. Now, let me point out, this might be a problem to parents, right? It's a challenge to understand that your child excelled beyond your capabilities. And, we've seen all those movies, the gruff dad who's really upset that his kid is, doing better or whatever. Don't be that. Just don't. Like, that's not the joy of the parent, is that the child has a better life than the parent did. That's the American dream, right? So let's embrace that and recognize when the child excels beyond your wildest imaginations. But also, don't give up the idea that you're still the parent. Just because my daughter is better at art than I am, she still looks to me for guidance on paper writing, math. Certainly, math is not her strong suit, right? So it's not that, wow, she's excelled beyond my capabilities in this one thing. I mean, she did that when she was 10, In the other things, I'm still the parent, and I'm still the guiding force, and I'm still the encourager. And so you maintain the relationship. And I will say, there are a lot of people who are reaching out and saying, you know, I can't get my child to sit still for the Zoom classes. And their child is 7 or 8. And I'm going, that's because your child is 7 or 8 years old. Can you just not do the Zoom classes? Is there a way out of that? Unfortunately, we're looking at homeschool now, and we're saying homeschooling is, you know, homeschooling looks like going to Zoom classes all day long instead of going to public school. I take issue with that. I think that that's a mistake. Okay, so let's see. I talked about art because that was completely out of my wheelhouse. But when I finally realized I am not the professor, okay, and neither are you. As the parent, you're not the professor. And we are moving away from that paradigm, by the way. And so I really encourage you to sort of embrace that and understand that the professorships have the idea of the professorship has shifted incrementally, but certainly more in our culture today. You've got young people who have 5 million followers on TikTok who are making a very good living, never having graduated high school. Okay. And those are, yes, those are like anomalies, but I'm just saying the whole culture is shifting, and we ought to be able to accept that and try to figure out how best to cultivate that idea within our own homes, because we have shifted, education has shifted from education, where it used to be the teaching, education used to be, the goal was to teach truth, beauty, and goodness. Okay. The goal of our public education system here in the United States was to teach people to be morally correct so that they would be good citizens. And boy, have we gotten away from that. And now there's no morality taught whatsoever. And just try to assert that something is true or good or beautiful, and you'll get your head handed to you. I would say we should be going back to that paradigm. So people who are dealing with math whizzes, and you're saying, well, I'm not a math whiz and I don't know how to do that. So you can find resources. There are lots of resources now that are available online. You don't have to put your child into a lecture system that's really outdated. You can find other ways for your child to learn the skills that he or she wants to learn. The other thing that I'll say is, one of the things that our education system, and I really shouldn't call that, our schooling system has done, is it's really discouraged us from learning, which is why I'm a huge homeschool proponent. So if you want your children to enjoy learning, and they are all created with the innate curiosity, and what is that? That's the desire to learn, right? Curiosity is the desire to learn. We don't want to quench that. We want to encourage that. And so how do you encourage that? You find things that they're interested in, and then you just encourage them along that path. And you, as the parent educator, can do that. My kids are way smarter than me. Yeah, mine too. But it's kind of fun. They're smarter than me in different ways, right? And yet they're so dumb, because children are blank slates. They're idiots. Then they learn one thing and they think they know everything, right? And then as we become parents, we understand that we know a few things, and then there's a ton we don't know, but don't let your children know that, right? So just embrace that and understand that you don't have to know everything. I think that comes as a big relief to a lot of parents who are just embarking on the homeschool journey. But yeah, we teach them to teach themselves. That's a comment here that's very good. Have them teach you so that you know they have mastered the knowledge. So when you, and that is, let me put it this way, homeschooling is challenging primarily because we grew up in a completely different paradigm. And so it looks so foreign to us, and it feels foreign, and it seems like work. And we're thinking, well, if I drop my kid off at school, then my work is done. But guess what? That's not true. That's a lie. That the schools actually further, because it helps them. It cements their role in society. It works for them. But it's a lie, because every court case where parents have sued the school because they failed to teach the child to read, the parents have lost, because the courts are never going to rule against the schools, first of all, but because legally it's the parent's responsibility for the child to learn to read. So if you understand that you have never given up the responsibility, you feel like you did when you dropped your kid off at school. You felt like, okay, I've delegated. You didn't. Then you start to understand, well, I mean, and that's what happened to me, is I thought I had delegated, and I thought that we were in a good school system and a good school with good teachers. And I thought that my job was done. All I had to do was sort of keep him on the road, right? But they were driving the car. He was in the back seat, and I just had to keep the car going forward or whatever. No, they weren't teaching him. It was all on me. If you do homework with your child, then you're home educating. Okay. School at home, distance learning is very different from homeschooling. That's true. And in fact, it simply isn't homeschooling. So if you're struggling with distance learning, if you're struggling with, my child won't sit in front of the computer for that long, I don't know why you would want your child to sit in front of a computer for that long, except it's maybe you think it's better than them not learning anything. And I would argue that it's worse. I think that that's probably the worst thing you could do to a child. And in fact, if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, which I'm not, you could argue that part of the reason that they're insisting on shutting down the schools and doing distance learning is to dissuade young people from learning at all. Because goodness knows, in our schools, in our public schools, they've done a bang up job of encouraging us to stop learning. The number one reason that parents give me for not being able to homeschool is that they don't know how. That's somebody who has stopped learning. The best thing for a parent who doesn't know how to homeschool, who might be mildly interested, the best thing for them to say is, I wish I knew how. I just have to figure out where to go for that information, who to talk to, right? College professors don't always even teach or instruct anymore. Well, that's true. What if my math really is up to even recognize right answers? Oh, isn't, sorry. So if you think that, okay, let me tell you this little anecdote. Ben Carson's mom couldn't read. She insisted that all of her children turn in a book report every week. Every week they went to the library, got a book, wrote a book report, turned it in. She couldn't read. He's Ben Carson. He's one of the premier neurosurgeons in the United States, the only one to separate Siamese twins, or conjoined, I suppose that's politically incorrect, conjoined twins. So if you don't know the math, first of all, if you have a math textbook, you have an answer key, right? That's, I mean, if you're doing the math work or doing the math course with your child, then you buy the answer key, okay? The second thing is you have them explain to you how they came up with the solution. And if they can't explain it, it's a fair bet that they got it wrong, maybe, not necessarily. I know children who try to explain math and can't. So not necessarily. One thing that parents, I think, when they're starting out homeschooling, because they're so used to the teacher having the answers and holding the answers and then giving the answers, they're not aware that everything is in the book. So if you struggle to teach your child math, the lessons are in the math book. You need look no further. unless you went and got just the workbooks. Now, that's what I did with my kids when we first started. I just got them workbooks because I knew all the math. So it was easy for me. So if they needed some instruction, I just gave it to them. But I'm talking fourth, fifth, sixth grade. If you can't do fourth, fifth, sixth grade math, then that's another conversation. Then you don't start with the workbooks. You get yourself a textbook and you teach them from the textbook and you go through each lesson. One of my children, when he was studying logic, he would come to me and say, I don't understand. I can't do the problem. I don't understand how it works. And I would immediately turn back to the beginning of the chapter. And I'd say, well, did you read the chapter? And he'd be like, well, I looked through it. And so I'd start reading we'd read the chapter together. And at a certain point, he would say, oh, wait, no, now I get it. Now I get it. And he'd try to turn back to the problems just to do the problems because he understood the solution to the first problem, but he hadn't read the chapter. So sit down with your child and read the chapter through with them. Now here's the joy. Oh, I love this. My 16-year-old thinks he knows everything. Yes. Ask him questions for which he has no answers. That will teach him that he doesn't know everything. It's pretty simple. Ask him some good philosophical questions. Go read Socrates. Just pick up something from Socrates and go through it with him and ask him what he thinks. Okay, big thinker. But it doesn't have to be Socrates. Pick up Shakespeare. Give him a Shakespeare book and ask him to explain it to you. Find math books with teacher keys that have step-by-step solution. I love that people are giving me solutions here. It's fantastic. So if they get it wrong, you can see the process to find the answer. So, and there are plenty of those, really plenty of those. And I know if you really, here's the thing, if you really struggle with math, you could always go to a math tutor place. Lord knows they're popping up like popcorn everywhere. Why? Because the schools aren't teaching the math. The schools aren't teaching the math. And the parents think the schools are, so the parents aren't. And then the children are lagging behind because they don't understand the math. The teachers aren't teaching it clearly. And so they go to Kumon or Mathnasium or whatever the other math tutoring facilities are. That's always a backup, is to find somebody else who has some expertise in that field to take your place. But I would encourage you that you are more capable than you think. My son says hi, he's a huge fan of yours. Hello there. Yes, parents' authority is even more undermined because the schools send homework to do and the parents have no idea how to do it or what was said in class about how to do it. And then that sets up a problem between the parent and the child. Let me just say, this person, because she wrote to me prior to this, she lives in California. She homeschools through a PSP, which is a private school plan, private school. It's a special school that, and by the way, there are a ton of these. They've just, and they've popped up even more now because there's money on the table, okay? They will take your money or they will teach you for free. They'll teach your children for free. They'll put them on the same course of study as in the public schools, right? And they will get paid by the public schools, but they have no overhead. At least the public schools that take money for your child attending, they have to pay the janitor and they have to mow the lawn and they have to, do the security and hire the teachers into classrooms and clean and do all, have all the books and everything. These PSPs, they can send you everything for free and send you a little check to boot in order to entice you to sign up. And then they get the money from the government for your student attending school. Anyway, she says she's been wanting to do it herself by filing an affidavit with the state because she'd like to be a little bit more free in how she pursues her children's education. And she's less free because she's beholden to the PSP. She says, I realize there are pros and cons for both sides. She says she thinks it might be a good thing to withdraw her apparently her son. She doesn't want the expectations that are the requirements that are put on her by the PSP, which I understand. I have a real struggle jumping through other people's hoops, especially when those people are at this point known to be unsuccessful in their endeavors. Let's put it that way. She says she understands the laws differ from state to state, and so she's asking me if I know how to file a homeschool affidavit. And it happens that since I lived in California and homeschooled there for many years, I do. It's actually not that hard. Go online and say homeschool affidavit filing. And obviously you don't pay for it ever. The other thing that I would encourage homeschoolers to do is to join HSLDA, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And they actually can give you instructions. Your local homeschool organizations, CHIA in California is Christian Home Educators Association. There's another one out there, I can't remember what it's called. They also have instructions. And the instructions are pretty clear for California's homeschool affidavit. You want to fill in the information that's required and nothing more. And because you don't want to sort of leave the door open for them to come and ask questions that they have no business asking, frankly. So that's actually pretty easy. And if you just ask around, anybody who does classical conversations, likely, maybe not likely, but I'd say maybe half of the people who do classical conversations file PSAs. I know I did when I was there. It's just not that difficult, but it does have to be in, I think it's before October 31st, I'm going to say, maybe the 15th each year. Okay, and then she's asking me about phonics. There are a lot of different phonics programs. I recommend phonics. That's the way that we understand how reading works. I know that we got away from phonics in our education system years ago. They implemented whole word reading, which is how Dr. Seuss grew to be the brand that he is now. But there are plenty of phonics programs, and really the best thing to do is to go online and search up the phonics programs and read the reviews. My kids are older at this point, so I haven't done a lot of research into phonics. I used I think it was just called Teaching Reading. It's not, the thing is, guys, it's not rocket science. It's sit down with a book and show your kids how to read. Just sit down and you get what I would do personally is I would go and buy phonics cards, and then I just start there, and then I'd start writing things for the child, and we'd have the for very young kids, you get the magnetic letters and you get the foamy letters, and so that they have things in their little hands. And you just start there and work through it. Let's see. Solution manuals. Yes, always, obviously, if you're buying a course, make sure that it comes with the solutions. My mother homeschooled me in the 70s, and boredom was the best initiator to get up and learn something. She left us alone for the first 6 months after withdrawing us from a Catholic school. I will say, and I've heard that before, and I didn't really do it. I did it a little bit. I'll tell you that story quickly. I took my kids back out of school after I had so much self-doubt that I put them back into school right after I started homeschooling. About a year and a half later, I had them back in school. And I took them out of school, and they had ruined math for my math whiz. And I sat down with him the first day that we were going to homeschool again, and I put a math problem in front of him, and he said, "I can't do that, Mommy. It's too hard. It's too hard for me," which is something that he had never said before, not even approached saying before. And I was devastated. It destroyed me. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, there's no reason to push it. So I put all the math away and didn't take it out for another week. Okay. So one thing that I would encourage parents, and I do encourage them, when you withdraw your child from school, give it a rest. Like, just take some time off. Take 2 weeks vacation. Just say, okay, we're just gonna be on vacation right now. Here's the thing: there's no tremendous rush. They have until they're 20 to get this stuff. Okay, 16, let's say. So take 2 weeks off. Say, no, you know what? Let's just give school a rest. They will love you for it. You take back the authority. When you take your child out of school, you take back the authority. You are now the authority, okay? I really want to encourage parents to embrace that and understand it and personify it. So you're the authority. So if you say, we're going to take 2 weeks off, I don't want to see any schoolwork from you. I don't want you to be doing any, you can do whatever you want, okay? If you really want to, and the child is like, what? No school, which some kids, they're like, what? This is terrible. Give them classic literature, and you can find classic literature that is age appropriate online very easily. There are plenty of sites. I think one of them is, I always think of it as Barefoot, but it's not. Anyway, there are a lot of different, you know what? Next time I'll have a list of my resources right in front of me. You find them classic literature to read, and just say, no, I just want you to read for 3 hours today. Can you do that? It doesn't have to all be at once. Read for a little bit, go, bake a cake, come back and read, go wash your hair, come back and read, work out, do some exercise, come back, go for a walk, come back and read. Just give them some reading to do and take back the authority. And then when you start up again, you have some credibility with your kid that you had previously given away. We don't understand what we sacrifice as parents when we consign our children to the institution. And I'm hoping to bring awareness to that so that we all can start to understand that and do something about it. As a homeschool mom, that was my favorite part, the answer key. I finally knew all the answers. I got to relearn myself, and it was truly fun. Thank you for putting that out there. This is an opportunity for you parents, okay? Let's see, I'm just reading some of these other. When do you know you are doing it correctly? That is such a great question. There really isn't a good answer for that. You could go and test your child, and then you would know where your child was in the testing. But if you are doing it correctly, you pretty much know the aptitude of your child. And the idea is not that you want Einstein. Nobody's expecting to have an Einstein. So really, what is your metric? And this is another part of the whole sort of homeschool paradigm that we have to rethink, or school paradigm that we have to rethink. Our metrics are skewed, right? It used to be, it used to be that we wanted to create good citizens, law-abiding citizens, honest, truthful citizens who could do community with each other, do society with each other without too much strife, right? We got so far away from that. Now it's the testing, and it's not even the testing anymore, because remember, they implemented the Common Core as a way of increasing test scores, right? All the test scores were going to go up, supposedly, even though they actually had never tested Common Core before they implemented it. And now we see that the test scores have been depressed by Common Core. So the testing metric is way overrated and misused, and they don't even believe it themselves. Okay? So what you have to do is unpack all of the education, all of the schooling that's been instilled in you, all of those metrics. You have to unpack them and start over again and go, okay, what is my goal for my child? Is my daughter, who is an artist, and I'm thinking, how's she going to make a living being an artist? How's that going to serve her? I had to say, wait, I don't care, because I want her to be happy. And she'll figure out a way to make it work, because I am engendering a lifetime learner, somebody who can think outside the box and figure out how to get stuff done. And, you know, she's actually already earning money with her art. Not gobs of money, but she's been paid for her art already. And she said to me, well, I don't think I want to do art, because I don't want to do art for somebody else, because then they can tell me what to do. So she's actually thinking that she wants to do some sort of psychology or something and help people in a different way. My son is doing much better at homeschooling than in school. He is getting better grades, and I can see where he struggles and help him with it. God bless you. That's awesome. Teach your child, somebody here suggested, teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. I believe that is the one that I used, and it was very good and very effective. And I'll tell you this quickly. I used that. My son was abysmal at reading. I made him do 2 lessons a day. I was like, no, we got to learn this now. And then shortly after that, I enrolled him in this little school where I said, he excels in math, but please don't judge me. He stinks at reading. It's just terrible. So he's remedial, but the math he's really good at. And I'm trying to like do the metrics so that I come out looking good, right? And she tested him and she came back. She said, you're right. He's in 2nd grade, but he's doing math at a 4th grade level. So very good. She said, but he is reading at a 5th grade level. And I literally looked at her and said, so I'm the one with the problem? Guess what, folks? You're the one with the problem. Your kids are doing just fine. You're the one. Why? Because of what you've been schooled in. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to call it quits right now. I do have an audio book of They're Your Kids that's available. So if you want to go and download the audio, it's available on Audible and probably other places. I'm just working on my new book, which is called Words for Warriors. I just completed the audio on that, so I'm excited about that. That doesn't launch until the end of January. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I'm being encouraged by your feedback, so please keep it coming. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, I'm going to sort of sequester off people who are signed up. So I still have to figure out how to get that done so that we can communicate. But I will communicate with you guys through the Ribbon app. And thank you so much for joining me. Send your questions. I'll address them. If not online in my podcast, I'll address them here. We'll do this again next Monday. Invite your friends. Please come with more questions. I can only talk just off the top of my head for so long. But I really appreciate all your input. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.